Hey there, Internet friends. Trevor Starkey here with another week's episode of Movie Mondays, where I go through and talk about any movies I've been watching or any favorite movies of my past or what have you, movie-related. My weekly movie show that takes place on Mondays. As I mentioned in last week's episode, this week is going to delve into my rankings of the Fast and the Furious franchise. If you've been following me on Twitter for a while, you probably saw a couple weeks ago I just did a bum rush marathon of all of the Fast and Furious movies, in large part inspired and thanks to my friend and fellow Kind of Funny fan, and now employee of Kind of Funny, Joey Noel, huge Fast and Furious fan who constantly would ask in the Trove Talk questions what my favorite Fast and Furious movie was, and as I had only ever watched the first one, I never had an answer for her. So I took about a day and a half a few weeks ago and just plowed through all the movies and live tweeted the whole damn mess. So for this potentially long episode of Movie Mondays, I wanted to tackle my rankings of the currently, as of this date, 8 Fast and the Furious movies that have been released. I should also probably point out that there will be spoilers for any and all of the Fast and the Furious movies herein. You have been warned. Starting with number 8, the worst of the worst. I don't understand how people like this one. The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. How did the franchise come back after this? It has the worst writing and the worst acting of the series. Sean, a character so bland I had to actually look it up on IMDb to remember his name and who he was, is just an all-around terrible character. Now, Vin Diesel isn't a great actor, but Dom as a character at least had a code about family and ride or die and living his life a quarter of a mile at a time. Sean is just an asshole with an overinflated ego. The movie has 2 redeeming qualities going for it. The precision car racing makes it for an interesting counterpoint versus the previous movies racing as quickly as we can through that quarter mile. But really, the only thing they felt worth saving moving forward was the character of Han. He's a mysteriously intriguing side character in here, and they decided he was worth setting the next few movies kind of in the past to keep him coming back, keep him in the fold. And that was it. He's the only thing worth saving in that movie. Everything else they just let die, save a brief little cameo from, again, Blandy McBlanderson in the 7th movie. Number 7, Too Fast, Too Furious. The one Vin Diesel didn't come back for because he thought the Chronicles of Riddick and Triple X were going to be way bigger hits for him. Tyrese is bad, everybody. Like, they veer into it when he comes back in 5, and from then on, and he's the butt of every joke and inept and stupid. But they weren't going with that in this first one. He was just bad. He's just a bad character and bad performance. You have Ludacris taking over the Ja Rule race guy role from the first movie. And also, apparently, he's hiding the fact that he's a secret super hacker. Because script writing, right? In other replacements, we also traded in the Sergeant from Monk for Harry from Dexter, further enforcing the idea that this was largely a paint-by-the-numbers sequel. Between this series and Transformers, I don't think I can think of another actor who's brought in as much money for as bad a work as Tyrese. He hungry, y'all. He hungry. Paul Walker and some decent action are the only things keeping this movie above Tokyo Drift, but both of those movies are just hot trash. Just terrible, terrible. If you like those movies, I am genuinely concerned for how your mind works. Coming in at number 6, The Fast and the Furious. Now, the original comes in here at number 6 because what The Fast and the Furious is now is not what this original Fast and Furious movie was. It's fine, mindless action. There's some fun car porn stuff in there and a lot of oiled-up booties. You know, the movie's often described as Point Break with cars, which I think is a very apt description for it. But it's definitely not anything I ever would have imagined turning into a billion-dollar franchise, but here we are. This original one made just over $200 million in the worldwide box office, and now 7 movies later, they're up over $5 billion in the franchise because cars, right? No. Because The Rock came in and saved it, and we'll get to that. Number 5, Fast and Furious, the faux reboot 4th movie. Yeah, it's a largely middle-of-the-road movie, so it lands kind of on the middle of my list. It's not great, it's not bad, it's just there. After the first 3 very loosely connected movies, this one gave us the first time we got to see kind of characters working together that had a history. The only other time we'd really seen that was Paul Walker and his FBI handler or whatever from 1 and 2, but this was a chance to get to see Paul Walker, Brian, back with all of the family of the first movie for the most part. And all of the stupid stuff with the underground tunnels on the Mexican border actually sets the course of the future of the franchise with more effects-driven racing than the physical action that we'd seen kind of in previous movies. So this is where the series actually becomes the more superhero-driven franchise that we have today, where you have Dom with these incredibly magic powers, where he can recreate a car wreck scene by just seeing some dirt on the ground or whatever. Letty's death was really dumb, but it also recognized that Han was the only thing worth saving from 3 and brought him back in with a sequence at the beginning of the film, and also gave us Gal Gadot as Giselle, who ends up being a great character for the few movies she's in the franchise. Number 4, Furious 7. The 7 suffers from the untimely passing of Paul Walker, of course. The third act is really rough, and you've got this drone warship destroying Los Angeles, and like the military or even local law enforcement don't really seem to care. Somebody got paid to write the line, "The thing about a street fight, the street always wins," right before Vin Diesel stomps a parking garage and crumbles it to the ground. And that hurts my head and soul, and it makes me cry because I thought at one point, hey, maybe I'll go down the screenwriting path. But at least this film also gives us Dwayne Johnson rock-bottoming Jason Statham through a table, and he uses the immense strength of the people's elbow to bust it out of a cast right before he crashes an ambulance into the said drone and destroys a helicopter with a minigun. And it was at this point where I thought to myself, you know, I'm really glad something came along and picked up the mantle of the Die Hard movies, which haven't been good since after the third one. Number 3, The Fate of the Furious, the most recent one. Much like how I described last week, I loved Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 more than the first because of the character moments. This movie does the same kind of thing. It gives us small character moments, especially with Dom having to confront the idea of having an actual family instead of his #ride or die one. The Statham fight scene with the baby on the airplane is an incredible sequence, and it does as much as humanly possible to try and get the audience to forget that he killed everybody's favorite character of Han. And it pretty much does everything they possibly could short of revealing to us that he's been tricking us all along and Han is safe in Tokyo with Giselle, who he saved from falling into the darkness on the world's longest runway. It's my fan fiction, damn it. Let it happen. And lastly, I think Charlize Theron makes for a very capable villain in here. Even though she doesn't do too much outside of playing Puppet Master, she shows that she's brutal and ruthless, and I'm excited that she lives at the end of the film, spoilers, to fight another day, and so we get to see kind of where she's coming from, where she's going next. Number 2, the runner-up, Fast and Furious 6. I really enjoyed the younger Shaw as a character. I thought even before Statham comes in, I thought he made for a great foil to the team, even kind of creating his own bizarro versions of the team that we've kind of cemented ourselves with in 5 and 6. I was genuinely sad to see him go flying out of the plane at the end because I thought he could have been used for more. And so I was very glad in 7 when they established that, no, he's still alive, he survived that all somehow because movies. And then we got to see a great moment of him working with his brother in the aforementioned Fate of the Furious. 6 also gave us a great send-off for Giselle and Han as we caught up to, at least by the end credits, the timeline of Tokyo Drift. It adds a tragic history to Han in Tokyo Drift. You know, if you ignore the part where he just showed off his drifting abilities to get a girl's number when he should have really been mourning the love of his life, Giselle. And as absurdly stupid as the 26-plus mile runway sequence is, it's still a really fun, really entertaining, and for the most part, pretty well-paced action sequence, even if it does run absurdly too long. And lastly, number 1, Fast 5, because The Rock makes everything better, damn it. Now, the original is Point Break with cars, then Fast 5, of course, gave us Ocean's 11 with cars. But in some ways, it's even better than Ocean's 11 because Ocean's 11 has to do all the legwork of establishing all of these characters, and so many of them get short shrift, whereas for the most part, we already know a lot of these characters, even if some of them, like Tej, are completely changing what their real role on the team is. Fast 5 also somehow managed to give us the Avengers of the Furiverse a whole year before the actual Avengers came along. I think Fast 5 really does a great job of nailing the character dynamics and a lot of their interactions with one another, even if they have to magically turn the guy who organized street and jet ski races into the super tech hacker guy. And if they had to bring back Tyrese, at least they did it by making him the butt of every goddamn joke in the series moving forward. He hungry, y'all. So those are my rankings of the Fast and the Furious movies. Overall, there's surprisingly a lot more good than bad in there. It's great, mindless fun. A few real stupid duds, but we got past that, and everything in the recent history has been great, and I appreciate the direction of the series moving forward. Let me know if you're one of the heathens that think Tokyo Drift or Too Fast, Too Furious are the best of the series, and why you are so wrong in the comments below. As always, I've been your host, Trevor Starkey from TrevorTrove.com. You can follow me at SnarkyStarkey on Twitter. And while Fast and Furious may be about family, here at the Trove, it's about treasuring your friends.